You are now watching the Amazing Mets PreGame Show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets PreGame Show right here on both of our channels. Hopefully everybody is enjoying their Sunday, getting ready for some Mets baseball as the New York Mets play game 3 of a 4-game set against the Marlins with Christian Scott on the mound and the tough lefty Trevor Rogers for the Marlins. Mets did win yesterday 1-0, and it was a very painstaking game because there was opportunities to be had, hard hit balls that didn't find grass, but they found a way to get the victory. The bullpen was outstanding. Severino was outstanding, and we got the W, and that's all that should matter is did we win, not how we won. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, absolutely. Keep stacking wins, 100% right on the money. No matter how many missed opportunities there were, all that matters is that the Mets won when the final out was recorded. Let's do it again today. Very excited to see how Christian Scott bounces back. His previous start in May versus the Marlins was not a good one. I believe he gave up 4 or 5 earned runs over 4 innings pitched, something like that. And I'm very curious to see how he attacks this Marlins lineup, who has given the Mets some problems so far this season. Like you said, Trevor Rogers as well. A couple of Mets batters have seen him quite a bit, including Mr. Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor. Pete Alonso has not fared well at all in his career off of Trevor Rogers, and we'll see what happens. But I appreciate it. If you all missed it, if you're tuning in right now, I did a live stream earlier this morning talking about Pete Alonso and some of those clutch statistics and diving into his baseball reference page. If you are curious, come on over to my stream. Hit the description down below and make sure you watch that live stream, because when I looked at his baseball reference page, Rob, I know we were having some discussions yesterday. I sent you a couple of screenshots of that page, and we were kind of talking about it. It is alarming, to say the least. So just wanted to do a little bit of an early stream on that.
You know, I was not bullshitting anybody when I said it about Pete Alonso. It's a lot of, unimpressive moments where he's done a lot of his damage. And, you brought up all the stats. You had a live stream about it, and you talked about it. You went into depth. You went over the stats. Like, it's hard. You can't, change the stats. It is what they are. Not saying that Pete Alonso is not a good player. Look, there's a lot of players that pad their stats throughout the year that end up having good individual numbers. But why does nobody ask, how did the team do? Because that's part of it. And there's no mistaking, and we always got to compare Lindor and Alonso because they are the two faces of this franchise, prior to Nimmo being a whole new player than he is right now. You got to compare them. And when the team's going well, when the Mets are going well, Lindor is producing at a high level in clutch situations. Now, I know somebody will probably look at the stats in depth like you did with Pete Alonso, and maybe it's different, but I don't think it is, because even Hector compared those two stats, and Lindor, when Mets are winning, are tremendous. It's a complete difference, and it's an issue. But we're voicing, we're putting it out there because it's not like it was a hard time finding those stats, right? Everybody can find them if you really want to, right? So it just shows you that people don't really want to believe that Pete Alonso is not as good in clutch situations than they believe personally, because that's the way it seems, including the media. So I love that you did that live. I love that you went into depth with that, because I've been beaten up by a lot of Mets fans because I'm always, beating up on Pete Alonso, but it's a fact. Like, sorry to say, it is a fact. But does that mean that we think Pete Alonso is going to have a bad second half? No, we don't want that to happen. Right? We don't want that to happen. Now, he hasn't looked good in the first 2 games back, but at the very least, I feel like he's going to at least be somewhat of the Pete Alonso we've seen in his career, at least good enough. Not okay or fine, a little bit better than that. Give me above average Pete Alonso, and then we can have better conversations when it comes to clutch situations, because it's not been good. So
He's one hot stretch away, Rob, from us
Yeah,
having a different conversation.
correct,
Contract talks aside, it's all it takes right now in terms of the 2024 season is one hot stretch away,
correct.
and that's what it takes from Pete Alonso. So I'm still holding out hope, and I'm hoping for the best, right? And like we said, we don't want him to fail, but we have to be objective in the conversations that we have surrounding the statistics in the clutch moments, and he hasn't been clutch, and that's it. So we got a game today, and hopefully he can turn it around against the pitcher that he's notoriously struggled against. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, and it's crazy though, because like he he hasn't really had that moment because Pete Alonso always has a hot streak at some point during the season. Even when he struggled last year, he had that 2-3 week stretch where he just beat the baseball up. Even though it wasn't a tremendous year overall, it was individually. But if you break down the stats, it wasn't a good year. A lot of those moments were in non-pressurized situations when the team was basically out of it for the remaining 3 months of the season. Yeah, a lot. You talked about Lindor, you talked about Alonso, who hasn't fared well against Trevor Rogers. Lindor surprises me a little bit because he's usually better against left-handed pitching, but Trevor Rogers is a good pitcher. The Mets. I'll be shocked if they score a lot of runs today, and this is not a detriment to the Mets lineup constructed today. It's just that Trevor Rogers is a good pitcher, and notoriously the Mets have been bad against left-handers, not necessarily overall this year, but in years past, that's been their Achilles heel. But going into today's game, we know the deal with Christian Scott. We don't agree with it because we're trying to win ball games. And regardless of the situation today, he could be pitching a perfect game, guys. And Chris is probably going to agree. He's coming out of the game. Whatever pitch count they decide, they're taking him out of the game. It doesn't matter the situation of the game. Perfect game, no hitter. Only he really hasn't worked hard in that game, but he's coming out in 90 pitches or whatever the pitch count is going to be for him today. And that's where the bullpen comes in, because now you got to start looking at the bullpen. Who's going to be available? We talked yesterday briefly on the post game in regards to who's going to be available on the bullpen, and I'll make you take this on. Who do you think is going to piggyback after Christian Scott? Because he's probably going to go 5 innings, maybe 6 if it really works out pitch count wise. I think I said it yesterday, but I want to see who you believe is going to piggyback off of Christian Scott, because we've seen it before, but maybe you have a different mindset.
Yeah, 100%. I was actually debating whether to make this my live chat poll of the day, whether I wanted to ask who everyone thought the first relief pitcher was going to come out of the bullpen today after Christian Scott, but I ended up going with my live chat poll talking about Christian Scott's actual pitch count for today. Do you believe he's going to throw 90 plus pitches, 80 to 89 pitches, or below 80 pitches? So I'm very curious to see how Carlos Mendoza and the Mets go about this start. If recent history repeats itself, he's going to be 75 to 85 pitches, and that's right in line with 4 innings, 4 1/3, 4 2/3, or 5 innings flat. We'll see how efficient he is. So make sure you all are voting in that live chat poll over on my stream as well. And also just hit the thumbs up on both streams. Obviously, we do these pre-games for you all, whether it's a weekday, whether it's a weekend. Rob and I are here. We have a busy Sunday ahead of ourselves. We got a hard deadline to get out of here by 1 o'clock. But yeah, 100%. We appreciate you all being here. Make sure you hit those thumbs up. In terms of who's coming in after Christian Scott, I tend to agree. I believe we said the name Adrian Hauser last night, and I tend to agree with that. But the problem, not even necessarily the problem, I can see a world where Adam Ottavino is the first one out of the bullpen if they want to use Adrian Hauser, perhaps maybe in like a 7th inning. Now, do I want that scenario to happen? No, but when you look at how, I don't want to say taxed this bullpen is, but how lacking of personnel they really have, right? Daniel Nunez probably not going to be available. We'll see if Jose Buto is available. Not sure he's going to be available. So you got 3 guys to really work with, maybe even 4 if you want to throw Danny Young in that equation. But it's going to be Adrian Hauser or Adam Ottavino as your righties. Probably both. We'll see them both, presumably, to try to get to Edwin Diaz. And if you have a stretch in the Marlins lineup, and I haven't taken a look at it, so I apologize. I don't know how many lefties they have, or if they have any lefties in a row. You'll probably see Jake Diekman. Or honestly, at this point, I don't trust Danny Young at all. But in a close ball game, I'd almost rather throw Danny Young than Jake Diekman because I know Danny Young more often than not, and I know he's still struggled with this, but he's going to throw more consistent strikes than Jake Diekman is. I love Jake Diekman's delivery. I love his arm slot. It's deceptive. It's tough on lefty batters. But if you can't throw a strike at the major league level, these guys have good enough eyes to take the free bases. And that's exactly where Jake Diekman has struggled so far. So I am inclined to say it's going to be Adrian Hauser. But would it shock me if it was Adam Ottavino? Not really. It just depends on who they want to have and throw in that situation earlier rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two lefties in the lineup with a bunch of switch hitters. So I guess it depends on what situation you're going to find yourself in. If you're going to bring in a Diekman in a big spot or a Danny Young for lefties. So it's not a ton of options there because they're switch hitters. A lot of them are, which is very odd. I think I looked at it real quick. 4 switch hitters and 2 lefties in the lineup along with the regular right-handed batters. Yeah, I wonder if Maton's going to play a big role in today's game because instead of bringing in Ottavino, say after the 5th inning, bring in Maton for maybe 6 and 7, and now you only got 2 more innings to work with in the 8th or 9th, and maybe you can bring in Hauser for the final 2, or maybe depending on the situation, Diaz be available for the 9th most likely. So that means 1 inning you probably really have to worry about. And can that be an Otto spot? Could that be a Danny Young spot? Could that be an Hauser spot for 1 inning? And then you'll definitely have Hauser available tomorrow. Here's an idea. Score a ton of runs today, and we don't have to worry about who pitches, right? Ottavino can come in on mop-up duty, scare us, but we'll still win by a decent amount of runs. I think that's the goal, right? The goal is to beat up on Trevor Rogers, which is not going to be easy, but beat up on him. You beat up on him, you score some runs, you make this a non-contest, and now you not only save bullpen arms, but you don't have to use your B-level relievers that are left in this bullpen because tomorrow is going to be a problem. If we have to use 3 or 4 bullpen arms, tomorrow's going to be a real issue. And that's the problem that we're going to run into. And with no days off, you can't tax your bullpen in the first series of the second half when you got the Yankees and the Braves coming up for the next 6 games after this series. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Mendoza works this bullpen today because it's a tough task. We talked about it how many times. He doesn't have trusted arms in his bullpen. And even when he get to this B level, it's kind of hit or miss. It's like, oh, is it, Hauser is a better bullpen guy for us than a starter, but he hasn't been good as of late either. So, and they've been prone to giving up home runs as well, which in bad spots. So I'm very interested to see. Again, hopefully it's an easy job for Mendoza today, and the Mets just beat up on Trevor Rogers, beat up on the Marlins, and we're talking about a 3 out of 4 tomorrow if we take care of business today.
Rob, I'm very curious too, because obviously we're going to have to talk about the Kodai Senga breaking news that we saw on Twitter, right? He is trending in the right direction, and they don't see any sort of, I guess, unforeseeable circumstances where Kodai Senga is not making his season debut this Friday against the Atlanta Braves. So even though he struggled in his rehab start yesterday, right, he had some trouble, obviously expected with the rust and trying to get back into game speed, throwing 80 plus pitches, etc., whatever. He is on track to make that scheduled start on Friday, which would then mean that automatically a guy like Christian Scott, who presumably has 2 more starts scheduled, even with Senga coming back before this deadline, do the Mets somehow extend Christian Scott today, knowing that this rotation is going to be moving to a 6-man coming up this coming week? That is something that the Mets can possibly do when looking at the rest in between with the 6-man coming up. I'm curious what you think on that, because I just remembered, right? How can I just remember? It was breaking news 20 minutes ago that they're talking about Kodai Senga making his debut upcoming this week. But do you think they extend him knowing that Kodai Senga is coming back and they're automatically going to have that extra day of rest? What do you think?
No, because I already seen him do it with Minaya and Severino, where they didn't make him go 95 to 100 pitches. They took him out. And Mendoza talked about it specifically yesterday that, they talked about the help and the amount of innings with Severino and didn't even let him. What did he do? 86 pitchers yesterday, 85, 86 pitches. Didn't even get to over 90. And Shomanaya didn't either. So that tells me that they're trying to protect these guys. And Christian Scott is even more protected. I don't think they're going to extend them at all. I think the whole plan is if we can get him out of the game between 85 and 90 pitches, we'll take him out of the ball game. And with the 6-man rotation, you're not only going to save him pitch count wise, you're going to save him innings wise as well. That's what I think.
Severino threw 91 yesterday, Rob.
Okay. So that's pretty decent. I mean, he could have went another inning, but I don't think Mendoza wanted to do that because I think they're all protecting these guys right now. Because Sean Manaea hasn't pitched a ton of innings in the last couple of years. Severino definitely didn't. Jose Quintana didn't really pitch last year. So you got to be careful with a lot of these innings that we're pitching these guys. And, maybe it's a benefit that these guys couldn't get out of the 5th inning or just 5 innings in the early part of the year when we complained about it. All of us did, right? But maybe it's a blessing in disguise that they were constantly not going past the 5th inning because that saves them in the second half to maybe after the 6-man rotation gets going with Senga coming back on Friday against the Braves, maybe you can actually extend these guys knowing they're going to get an extra day's rest now going forward once that the new rotation sets up. And the new rotation, I think, sets up on, is it the second Yankee game? And then the rotation is actually where it's at, right? Where it starts from the beginning and then goes on. I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how they're going to do it.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something
So,
like
that. That's what I'm thinking. I would think that's the case, but we'll see. With the Kodai Senga news, are you kind of shocked? Because how like when guys come back from injuries, the Mets are they're very known for doing this. They would not want to pitch a Jacob deGrom coming back from injury against a division rival or somebody who's going to be very tough. Are you a little shocked that they're letting Kodai Senga, who's probably going to be on the pitch count, definitely coming back for his first start against the Atlanta Braves? I know it's at home and it's good vibes coming from Mets fans, especially if we have a good road trip coming back home. But are you a little shocked that they're going to use the Atlanta series as day one of Senga coming back for his first start of the year? Or do you think that they just need pitching and said, screw it, it's working out that way? He's lining up with his the way he's spreading out his off days. What do you think?
I didn't look too far in the schedule. That series is at home against the Atlanta Braves. It's at City, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of the Mets being just a tad bit desperate for extra pitching and really wanting to go to that 6-man rotation, because I think in a perfect world scenario, I mean, the Mets could have went to a 6-man already if they really wanted to, but I just didn't think that they were comfortable basically utilizing the personnel that they currently have without Senga in the 6-man rotation, because with the way Quintana was going at one point, with the way that McGill has struggled recently, it basically theoretically, right, be given a free game, or it would be kind of a free loss, to be honest with you, with the current personnel that they had. So I think that the only way that they were going to go to a 6-man rotation, and that's where I commend the Mets, because they were very stubborn with this. They're like, the only way we're going to a 6-man rotation is if Senga's in the fold. So I think it's a little bit of desperation because they knew that they only wanted to go to a 6-man with Senga, and that sort of injury timeline got extended more so than they would have hoped, right, originally, and what they originally had planned for Senga. So I think it's a little bit of desperation, but also mixed in between, it's a little bit of a statement to the New York Mets players like, hey, listen, we got our guy back. We got the guy that posted tremendous rookie numbers last season, is one of the premier pitchers of the game right now with that ghost fork pitch, right, that nobody seemed to have figured out last year. And they're like, listen, what better time, even though he's on a pitch count, what better time to show these guys and bring some energy and life back into this team? Not that they're lacking energy and life, but it's kind of like a push in the backside. Like, hey, listen, we're serious about this season, and we know we haven't done this in seasons prior. with these guys coming back against an in-division rival, a team that we're currently 4 games back of, chasing for that first wild card spot. But here it is. Here you go. Show me what you got and get this damn guy some runs. And that's kind of like showing the offensive side of things that they're in it to win it, right? And this is it. And a lot of people, I hate this notion, right? Every single year we talk about the Mets trade deadline and talking about, oh, this is like adding a pitcher at the deadline with Senga coming back from injury. I hate when people say that because I never buy into it. But you can almost see if there's any situation where that might be the case, it might be this scenario right here, because this is going to bring, hopefully, so much life and a little bit extra rest for the rest of the guys and rejuvenate a guy like Luis Severino, right? By giving him a rest and taking pressure off. Not that he hasn't excelled under pressure, but now he knows that he can be a number 2 because the main guy, the guy that the Mets went out and got last offseason or 2 off seasons ago, is back. And so I'm hyped. And I think it's a little bit of a combination from both. I hate to call the Mets desperate, and I don't want to say that they are desperate. But like I said, I really do think that they are relieved finally that they think that they can give the rest of the starters a break. So I think it's a little bit of a mix in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right about that. It's desperation, and that they want to get to that 6-man rotation as quick as possible, so these pitchers can get adjusted to it. Because we talk about this a lot, right? You don't want them to be too hyped up, too strong in their next start, and their first start going, getting an extra day's rest for each starter is going to take. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, especially when they've been going through the same 5-man rotation routine for the entire season so far. It's going to be a little bit of an adjustment, not a crazy adjustment. At least we don't hope, but yeah, I think they want to go to a 6-man rotation. I think that was their plan. If Senga didn't get hurt, I think they were going to go to a 6-man, like regardless, to start the season. But he got hurt. Think plans change, and you just roll with it, which the Mets did. But yeah, I don't like that. Oh, Senga's like, a trade deadline acquisition. Not really, because that gives the team an excuse to not go out there and get reinforcements. At least that's what I think. But yeah, I agree with that. And you know what? I actually really like it that Senga's getting right in the thick of things, because listen, we're in playoff run baseball here. Like, make no mistake about it, right? This stretch, we talked about it. Prior to the series starting in the second half, there were 13 games until the deadline, right? 13 games. That's going to make or break the Mets becoming buyers or sellers, or whatever combination you think it's going to be, or both, right? So this is a stretch right here where, be quite honest, we need Senga right now. And I don't know if he's going to be good or bad, but we need that extra arm. And it's only going to help regardless, because you're going to be throwing somebody else out there that's probably not better than Senga anyway. So put him out there, put him right in the mix at Citi Field. It's going to get the fans pumped at Citi Field. You're facing the Braves, and there's a strong possibility in a few days we can be going into this Brave series after the Yankee series and saying, hey, look at the standings. We might be still 4 games, or we might be closer. And that series could really mean that the Mets can do some damage in this wildcard standings and make some space between the teams behind the wildcard line right now, who are in the 4th, 5th, and 6th spot, and get away from them a little bit, because that's the other key, right? You want to be in a wildcard spot, but it's too close for comfort right now with a couple of teams behind us. So you want to get that separation a little bit, and why not? Listen, you got to put them in eventually. Put him in the biggest spot, and that is a big spot right there with a division rival where the Braves came back to earth. The Mets have been playing really good baseball, and it's time to play some ball. And that's what they got to do. Again, we're getting a couple of games ahead of ourselves. We still got 2 games in this series, 2 Yankee games, and then the Brave series. But we got to take care of business here, Chris. And I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, sorry to cut you off. Like, that's a great point that you just made there to the end. Like, at the end, I was like, I've been talking about deadline, and we've been talking about deadline, looking forward to that. But I've been so focused at the games at hand that I just asked you if the Mets are playing the Braves at home, because I genuinely haven't looked at the upcoming Yankees games and the rotation matchups for that series or this Brave series, because I've been so focused day by day on just taking the Marlins seriously and starting off the second half on the right foot that I'm just like, I don't know what 3 days from now is going to bring, 4 days from now is going to bring. But at the end of the day, we got to take it one game at a time. So I really like the end of what you just said. Sorry to cut you off because I had to just say that. I was like, I don't even know if the Mets are playing in Atlanta or in Queens. Like, I have no idea for that series. So, yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the chat saying Max Fried just been put on the IL, so we don't have to face him. But, yeah, I mean, we'll worry about Max Fried when we get to that point, because right now today, and, of course, I made a typo in the lineup all the way at the end with the Bader's playing CD. I never heard of that position before. But, hey, it's all good, right? They've been winning when I've been making mistakes, honest mistakes. So I'm just going to shut up and go about this lineup right now, right? No Alvarez, obviously. I'm a little shocked that McNeil, who's been getting better at bats. I know it's against a tough lefty. I would have played him today. I was a little bit like, damn, what? Put the guy in. Like, he's finally figuring stuff out a little bit, making hard contact, and he's not playing today. Now, I get it. Maybe it was already the plan going into the series, and it wasn't just like a today decision, this morning decision. But we knew Torrens was going to play today. Obviously, that's, we love Alvarez, but Torrens has been an excellent backup. He's showing some big hits, showing some power. We know he's really good behind the plate. Try to run on him, you're going to get caught. That's always a good sign, right? You got Iglesias back in the lineup once again. Tyron Taylor finally saying, hey, I'm better than DJ Stewart. Put me in. He's in there at the 8 spot. And then Bader playing a position that nobody's ever heard of. I like the bottom of the order right now. I think Taylor's going to have a big game. I think it's a perfect spot to put him in against a lefty. But we got to talk about the top of the order, right? Lindor is still getting a couple of hits. Nimmo has been killing it. Martinez has been struggling. We talked about Alonso already. We need this lineup to get back to where they at least somewhat were prior to the All-Star break, because these 1 runs, 4 runs, 4 runs is fine, not great, but it's winnable. It's a winnable game with 4 runs. I need some runs from this lineup. What do you think about this lineup today? Are you a little shocked about certain people in the lineup today, or you're okay with it?
I still genuinely I'm being very genuine here, where I still have no idea what the Mets plan is in terms of their platoon for Jeff McNeil, right? I have no idea, because Jeff McNeil obviously has been putting better at bats together. He's looked like a different version of himself. I know he had a couple tough at bats yesterday. He absolutely rocketed one as well, but he didn't get really the results that he did in game 1 of this series. But you look at his splits in 2024, we know it's a lefty on the mound in Trevor Rogers. But Jeff McNeil is hitting lefties better this year than he's hitting righties. And it goes against the whole lefty-righty matchup. Like he is an anomaly. Not really an anomaly, because I don't believe in lefty-righty matchups, and I don't believe in those advantages, etc. I know the advanced stats kind of show differently, but I hate when managers around baseball, not just the Mets, make their decisions off of lefty-righty platoon splits. But this would be a point in the game where you see Jeff McNeil is hitting better. He's hitting lefties historically in 2024 better than he is righties as a left-handed batter, and I would expect him to be in the lineup. So it's kind of shocking me. I'm not complaining, because all season long, up until recently, we've been saying, like, why is Jeff McNeil in the lineup here? Why is he in the lineup there? So I'm not going to stop changing my tune and stop singing that tune, but I'm just curious. I would love to know what the actual plan is here between the rotation of Jose Iglesias and Jeff McNeil. Maybe it is random. Maybe they do have a strategy that goes beyond just the lefty-righty platoon splits that I'm telling you right now. But when I look at a guy that's hitting, I believe, 208 against righties and 250 against lefties, it's kind of head-scratching. But at the end of the day, when you have a team that is rolling right now, right? Despite the game one loss against Miami, I'm not going to sit here and nitpick the lineup before the game. What we have is what we got. Any lineup combination that the Mets have thrown out there more or less in the past 2 months, ever since the players only meeting, has worked. It doesn't matter who's hitting in what spot. It doesn't matter who's sitting or playing that day. These guys in general have been getting it done. And we know that the Mets put up 4 runs in game one, 3 of which were thanks to Jeff McNeil, obviously not in the lineup today. And we know the Mets came back and put up 1 run in a victory last night. We need more runs, and we need the same continuity of offense, right? Of at-bats, of situational hitting that we were getting down the stretch of the first half. I want that to start today, and I want them to get back in the groove of things. Luis Torrens, obviously, Francisco Alvarez gets the off day. Catching is a very tough thing. I do like sometimes, and we've seen it here recently, I forgot what game it was, where Carlos Mendoza utilized the DH and as the catching position, right? JD Martinez has been struggling. I like the 2 catchers in the lineup type of role and type of strategy, but I'm not going to complain at all in terms of any lineup. I like what we got, and at the end of the day, the guy that I'm watching the most, I said it in my live stream this morning. Like I said, if you guys missed it, go back and check it out. Links in the description down below. We talked Pete Alonso. I'm watching Pete Alonso every single day. And I hate to turn this back around into Pete Alonso, Pete Alonso, Pete Alonso. But we know we've gotten a turnaround from Lindor. We know we've gotten a turnaround in Nimmo. We know that JD Martinez, all in all, is struggling right now, and we're sort of waiting for him to get back on track. But we know what we have in the middle of this order, even when Luis Torrens or Francisco Alvarez is there. We know what Mark Vientos has provided. What are we going to get out of Pete Alonso? And if he does turn it around, let's say today or tomorrow, is he going to be able to make that a trend consistently? That's what I want to see. So I know that people are annoyed because we keep bringing up Pete Alonso, but he is the key. He came into the second half as my key to this Mets lineup and to this team in general, just lighting it up and taking on a different level than what they did in the first half, because they finished off strong. But to get to that next level, Pete Alonso is going to need to be better. I like the lineup. I think that you'll see probably I don't think this is their A lineup, to be honest with you. I don't think this is the overall A lineup, but I think you'll see that tomorrow in the series finale. But you got to give days off where days off are due. So it is what it is. Carlos Mendoza in general has had a great feel. We talked about this on our post game yesterday. A great feel, right? When he left Luis Severino in the game yesterday, when Luis Severino basically told him, hey, listen, I want to stay in this game. I got this. He's got a great feel for his players.
Yep.
And I'm going to trust the lineup. Hopefully they put up some runs for us.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you when it comes to the lineup. I don't think there's a direct lefty-righty matchup. I just think it's more of, you know what? I like this guy in here today. I want him in here today. He hasn't played in a while. I'm throwing him in there, right? And it's worked. Like, you know, the hell with the lefty-righty matchups. I always hated that. It was a huge problem for me in 2022. In 2022 mostly, when I talked about it a lot. And, you know, I just think it's more of gut feel. Who hasn't played in a while, and you know, a 4-game series, you got to give the catcher a break. So that's why Torrens is playing. It's like a sub Sunday lineup for today's game at 1:40. So to end the stream with this game 3, right? The Mets are 3 games over 500. They're hanging on, tied at the 3rd wild card spot, percentage points ahead of the Diamondbacks right now. Because McNeil is not in the lineup, we're kind of upset about that. It's kind of, I don't want to say upset, but it would have been nice to see him in there. What do you think we're going to get from Christian Scott today? And do you think this offense is going to break through Trevor Rogers today? And your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've seen Trevor Rogers so far this year. Nimmo and Lindor are both 4 for 15 career off of Trevor Rogers. That's 267. In case you don't want to do and crunch the numbers yourself, it's okay. Pete Alonso's like 2 for 18, something like that. Not pretty. And there's a couple of at bats in between from the rest of the lineup. Not really great sample size to judge what might transpire today, but I'm very. I know that we've talked about Trevor Rogers having a very tough sort of, I guess, arm action, and he's got a tough delivery, and it could be very deceptive. But I'm not enamored with his talent level. I don't think that he's a pitcher that should be shutting down a lineup a formidable lineup like the New York Mets have right now. So I'm fully expecting for them to go out there and provide some runs for Christian Scott. Now, one thing that they did last night, right, being that it was a shutout, is they scored first. So I would love if that trend repeats itself today. But I agree with you. Let's put up 4, 5, 6 runs. Let's let Christian Scott do his thing. He went out there as a rookie and struggled in May versus a decent lineup. I'm not going to discredit the Marlins, even with their win-loss record. It's a decent lineup, right? It's sneaky good. It's not great by any means, but it's sneaky good. And let's get him a lead. Let's let Christian Scott pitch with a lead instead of him having to hold down shutdown inning after shutdown inning after shutdown inning in a tie ball game or being down 1 if we don't score first. So I have high hopes for today. Like I said, Trevor Rogers and any pitcher, right, that has had success against the Mets this season really shouldn't be having success against them. Their pitching staff isn't that great. Let's call a spade a spade. Their lineup is better than their pitching. Let's go out there and put a hurting on Trevor Rogers early and often. And we say this all the time, but I'd really love for the Mets lineup to get back to the ways of getting their pitchers leads. It makes the pitcher more comfortable, especially with Christian Scott, who's been kind of up and down this year. He's got a 4.32 ERA, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there, and his whip is actually not that bad. So he's had flashes of brilliance. Sometimes he leaves his slider flat. Sometimes his fastball is very flat, although it's 95, 96. He needs to work on his location. I want to see him settle down, calm with the lead, and ride whatever pitch count that he's got into the bullpen for a Mets victory. So Sunday matinee, baby. No better time to go 4 games above 500. No better time. 1 game at a time is what I'm preaching and what I will continue to preach. Let's go out there and get a win. Everybody, I hope you all enjoy your Sunday afternoons and your Sunday evenings, riding into the work week. And other than that, let's go Mets. Like I said, check out the earlier stream if you missed it. Would appreciate if you all hit the thumbs up on this stream and that stream. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on Rob's stream. And no post game today. Like I said, I'm busy. I know you're busy as well, so no post game from either of us. We'll probably get back into the swing of things tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on what we got going on. And that's how we'll go about it. So let's go Mets. Let's take a 2-1 lead in this series and set ourselves up nicely for another series win and digging ourselves out of the hole after a sloppy game 1 in that 6-4 loss. So let's go. Let's get it. Nothing else to it. Game time in less than an hour. So let's do it.
Absolutely. Well said. And listen, guys, Christian Scott, right? He's shown flashes of brilliance, leaves that slider every now and then up, and that's when he gets hurt. He's around the zone a lot. He doesn't walk a lot. He likes to throw the ball in the zone, which I love. He attacks, but he does got to be aware of his pitch count. And I think that's something that I think over time, over these next couple of starts, he's going to understand that, all right, I can't throw a ton of pitches here. I got to make sure I finish innings early so my pitch count's low so I can stay in the ball game a little bit later. I think Christian Scott's going to pitch well for as long as he's going to be in the ball game and get to Trevor Rogers. You got to get to Trevor Rogers right now. Get him early, work the count. Look, the job is you want to score early, absolutely, but you also want him out of the game as well as quickly as possible because the Marlins did use a decent amount of pitchers as well, and they got some good arms in that bullpen, but it's not a very good bullpen other than maybe 1 or 2 guys. So get Trevor Rogers early, make them work. Offense, specifically the top of the lineup, got to do their job. Specifically, Martinez and Alonso. Those 2 are my spotlight guys today to do some damage. I'm putting in a hit apiece for Martinez and Alonso for you bettors out there, and I'm putting a home run for Pete Alonso today. How about that? That's right. Positivity for your asses, guys. With that said, thank you for tuning in to the Amazing Mets pregame show. No post game, as Chris said, but hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're not a subscriber as of yet. We'll see you next time, guys. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy the Mets game. Let's go, Mets. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys. Enjoy the game.
Let's go, Mets.
Thank you.